I had a poster, yes, and on that poster, it's a transcript of a canal, a Dutch canal, with salamanders, with frogs, and above it, a grass snake.
Yeah, for sure, right there.
Yes, okay. Yes, and that was, I think that was for me, my ultimate goal, what I wanted as a kid. I want to have something with a terrarium and aquarium, with fish, with frogs, and with a grass snake.
Yeah, I think the techniques were not as sophisticated as today.
Yes, but also it was not known how to keep them. There was only one little book about what do I keep in my terrarium.
Okay.
And there was one chapter about semi-aquatic snakes.
Yeah, so.
And they said, well, keep them in an aquarium, and you make it all wet in a little island, and that's enough. And that's exactly the wrong method.
Exactly.
For garter snakes or water snakes.
Yeah, yeah. If you want them to die, do that.
Do that, yes.
And they will die soon, no problem.
They will die soon, yes. Everybody who starts with snakes is terrified of hibernation. So that's what I did, and then after 3 months, I took them out of hibernation, and they were healthy, they were fit,
active,
they were happy as could be.
Yeah.
And you put them in a warm terrarium, and within 1 week they started to eat, they started to mate. It was incredible.
Yeah, in fact reproducing what happens in the wild.
Exactly, exactly. And from that moment, I am a very strong believer of hibernation.
So you've spoke about EXA, in fact.
Yes.
So can you describe what it is? So it's the European Garter Snake Association.
Yes. So it was an initiative.
I think you contributed to create it, no?
Yes. Let me see.
You have some mugs, I think.
I have some mugs, but because I take it because then I know exactly when. So we started in 1996, as you can see here. That's when it was created. And it was an initiative of 2 Dutch guys and 2 German guys. I was one of the 2 Dutch guys. The other Dutch guy was Rob Jansen, and then 2 German guys. Yeah, and together we started up the European Garter Snake Association.
So what are the aims of the association?
Well, the aims are very much in line with what I just said.
Okay, so yeah.
So it's focus, conservation, breeding, and back then we had, in 1996, we had a little bit more than in 1982, but much more. So a special snake back then was the checkered garter snake. There were just a few people keeping them. There were some people with parietales, Thamnophis marcianus. There's some people with parietales. But I would say 80% of all the species I have here, they were not there yet. But back then we already realized that the hobby goes with peaks and with valleys. So there are times that some species everybody's interested in, and then everybody wants to start breeding them. But yeah, then at a certain time it looks like there's too much babies and you cannot sell them easily, and people stop again. And what we wanted as an association to make sure that there's always the group of people that together we make sure that what we have right now we don't lose, because when you lose it, well, who knows how to get it back, because They're not easily imported from the US.
Yeah, so it leads to another question. So today you have plenty of snakes, as you told me. This was not easy at first because you only had few species, available in Europe.
Yeah.
And tell me, Steven, so how did you get that, nice and unique collection?
Yes. So let's say, one of the advantages of getting snakes over from the US is that often people collected pregnant garter snakes in the wild. And the positive thing for me about that is that they can tell me exactly the location, so I know the exact subspecies and I know the location, and I know they are pure. Because, for instance, if you start with snakes that are bred in captivity, you always have to rely on the origin of the snakes, and sometimes that can be a little bit problematic if people start to cross different subspecies and they look like one or the other, and they don't tell it, and then especially with Tetratenia and Infernalis, if you cross them, they can look either like Tetratenia or either like Infernalis, and then if you start breeding with those at a certain time, you discover, hey, it's not pure.
There's a problem. Yeah.
And I like the pure subspecies from a certain location.
Yeah.
That's important for me. But if you take the eastern garter snake, Thamnophis sirtalis, why does location matter? Well, the eastern garter snake occurs from up north in Canada, I think to the Hudson Bay, all the way south to the southern tip of Florida. Well, the eastern garter snake, Thamnophis sirtalis, from the southern tip of Florida, lives a totally different life than the one from the Hudson Bay. The Hudson Bay has 7 months of hibernation. That one from Florida has no hibernation.
The environment is very different. Temperatures are so different too.
Yes. So if you wanna keep them sort of more or less in a natural way, you need to know where they're coming from.
For sure. You observed, new behaviors of the snakes. So, is it possible to observe those behaviors? I know you are going to answer yes, but I want you to explain why.
Yeah.
In captivity, to find new knowledge about the snakes, maintaining them in captivity.
So by education, I'm a biologist. So I'm very much interested in the biology of the snakes and the ecology of the snakes. And I think many people, especially from France, who see snakes in the wild, that you only sometimes see a glimpse of a snake. You see a snake swimming in the river, but you don't know exactly what he does in March, throughout the year. When is he active? When is he not active? And other things you can way better observe in the terrarium. So if you keep them in captivity, you can observe them day by day and throughout the year.
Much better. They can keep the same behavior as the one they have in the wild.
Yeah, more or less. I think they more or less they will keep
it's not
the
like
same
a dog, or cat or something like that.
No, exactly. No, not at all. So you can learn some basic things about the snakes by keeping them in captivity, which you can extrapolate to what other biologists find in the wild. So they do research on wild populations, but what they lack often is the knowledge of if you keep them in captivity. Because if you keep them in captivity, you know, for instance, that if you feed a snake year-round well, that he is always well fed enough. So if in the wild they see, for instance, that a snake only breeds once every year, the biologist might think, well, that is because he doesn't have enough fat reserves. If we keep the same species in captivity, he breeds every year. So that confirms that it might have to do with that he just that he doesn't get enough food. Mating behavior and how long does it take between mating and giving birth, and how big are the litter size, all those things, how big are the babies, and is it also a flexible trait? So many things you can learn by keeping them in captivity, because and stop me when I'm going on too much, but With the with the common garter snake, there's a lot of articles also about litter size and baby size. So let's say the ones from the east, they have big litters, so maybe up to 40-50 babies, and they're very small. They're only 15 centimeters. And then you go to the west, to Cerathalus concinus, for instance, they have in general smaller litters, but bigger babies.
Bigger babies.
They're almost sometimes 20-24 centimeters long. And by keeping them in captivity, you can rule out that it has to do with the environment. You can say, well, this is something really that has a sort of a genetic basis.
The other part of your hobby is not only to, observe them in captivity, but also in the wild.
Yes.
So you are often traveling to the US, Mexico, and Canada.
Yes. So
how many times a year? I mean, in normal conditions, not with the COVID conditions.
Yeah.
And so, where? And can you tell us perhaps some of your most amazing observations you've made in the wild? Some anecdotes, something like that.
Yeah. So my job is I work for a company that controls pests, insects with beneficial insects.
Okay.
And for that company, I am responsible for the business in North America. And for that, I have to travel a lot to Canada, US, and Mexico, because that is my territory.
This is not a big problem for you,
That's not a big problem. So instead of keeping the trip short, I always try to have a 10-day trip and always include a weekend. And in those weekends,
you hike?
I hike, and I try to find the habitats of all the snakes I have. That's my goal. I've not succeeded it for every snake I have. I think I need to visit the habitat of thamnophis cauchi. That's the only one I didn't visit. But for all the others, I made observations in the wild as well.
Amazing, because you have plenty of species here.
I have a lot of species, and
it needs a lot of trips, to discover.
It's a lot of trips. Yes. But because I've been doing this job now for 25 years, and I travel 8 to 10 times a year to North America. I've had many weekends where I can, and I also have the luxury that I sometimes can move my trips into a certain area which is interesting for me. So. Okay.
So you visited many habitats once more. Now do you have some anecdotes, something that you discovered, in the wild? Well, can you tell us? Do you have some amazing things? I'm sure it's the case.
Yeah, of course, but there's
too many.
There's too many. But let's say one of my most amazing ones was maybe to visit Mexico and to look for garter snakes in Mexico. And one time I went to Lago de Chapala.
Yeah, this is a very famous lake. You can find, I think, some Melanogaster canescens over there.
Yes.
And some, it's not Quitzoensis, because of course it's Lake
Obscurus.
Obscurus, yes.
Yes.
Okay. The ones that are behind me at the moment.
Yes. So that's a huge lake. It's 200 kilometers wide and 100 kilometers high.
In the mountains?
In the mountains, it's about 1600 meters high, if I say it correctly out of the top of my head, or maybe 1800, but roughly like that. And it's in central Mexico, and it's in the volcanic belt. And this huge lake contains those two species, and I was very interested to find them and to see how they looked in the wild. So one day I went there, and I had read some articles from Roger Conant on that he said, well, you cannot find them before September, because in September it starts to rain and then they all come out and then you can find them easily. And this was in May, so I was not too convinced that I could find them. So I was there early in the morning, and I was walking the shores, and after half an hour I found one very skinny, bad looking Obscurus. But at least I found one. It was lying on the, it was a sort of a rocky shore of the lake. And not many hiding places, so if they were there you could see them or you wouldn't see them. But I also saw some willow trees standing in the lake. After 2 hours of hiking I thought, well, maybe, oh no, then I saw one snake swimming in the water. The nice thing of the Mexican garter snake is they swim like the grass snake. So they are floating more or less on the water with their head above the water. And they're floating, and they very graciously. So I saw a big one swimming in the lake, and then it went to a willow tree, and it went up the willow tree. So then I walked up to one willow tree, and I was I put my camera high, and I was waist deep in the water, and then I was walking along the tree, and I saw a big snake, so I grabbed it, and then while I grabbed it, I grabbed two snakes, and they were copulating. It was in May, and they were locked. So that was an amazing observation to witness them that early in the year, copulating, and so that was amazing. And then I also noticed that there were huge quantities in those trees. Some trees had 40, 50 obscurus and melanogaster all basking together, and then from the melanogaster there were melanistings ones that never had been described. So I saw some all black melanogaster.
What a day.
And that I think that they have found maybe 60, 70 snakes altogether, both obscurus and melanogaster, and it was just fantastic to
amazing.
See all those snakes, all the variation, beautiful.
Wow. So that was a nice anecdote, I think.
That was a very nice one. Yeah.
Okay, so
I will tell one more anecdote.
Okay, so I'm listening to you.
Yeah. So, but it's not all days are like that.
Yeah, for sure. Many days are like you don't see you see those snakes and
exactly. So with a short sidestep to the European Garter Snake Association, one thing that we do, we meet once a year, mostly in Germany, and I always make a slideshow of what I see, and what I also tell every time when I give a presentation is that not every day is like that you see 10 or 20 or 30 snakes. There are many days that you find nothing. Well, one of those...
Patience is one of the key words in Kinoshis.
Yes, and then especially the not aquatic snakes from Mexico, they're sometimes very difficult to find. So Thamnophis pulgulatus, the yellow-throated garter snake, the highland garter snake, that's one of them. And I think I spent maybe 10, 20 weekends searching for them in all the different locations where I thought they might occur, without ever finding one, until I finally found one day I could find one in the wild, which was amazing, but it was a lot of hard work to find them and to observe them.
You had to wait for a long time, but you finally was successful.
Yeah, finally I was successful, yeah.
You should, feel something like great happiness in such a
yeah, it's fantastic.